Well, we do have
even
a
that
loading
wasn't quite
screen
right.
here.
So
we're gonna be going into a level of game, and it's gonna be taking place on the largest map of all.
and actually, isn't Tal'Darim Malter starting to get taken out of tournaments and stuff too?
Yeah,
I think they were talking. I was listening to state of the game. Oh gosh, the probe split. Oh gosh. Did you see that, Sleeper? Oh man.
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh man. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and welcome back to the Coffee Cast Amateur Attack Edition. I'm trying to pull myself together after that, where I take in 2 viewers from the audience and pit them against one another for my own sick entertainment. Spawning on the top left-hand side, I'm not going to make his brother introduce him like I generally do by accident. He is going to be our Pretty Pink Protoss player, the descendant of the Pretty Pink Protoss player, not the descendant. Yeah. Yes, he is actually your son, Sleeper. Your brother is actually your son. Your parents just haven't told you yet. He is going to... Oh, gosh. He's Zuka, man. I'm just going to let that one go. Sleeper's the other guy. You take it away. Oh, gosh.
I think out of punishment, I should make you solo cast the rest of this game. For those words that you just said. Solo cast.
On the lower right hand side, that's our green Terran player. He hasn't been around too much, but we have seen him around before. He is the returning player, Balfewbank. Balfewbank. Who actually looks like he's setting up for an expansion already, walling off over that natural expansion. I want to talk briefly, just kind of touch briefly on this map. It is Tal'Darim Malter, which is kind of finally taking its death tolls, I guess you could say. We do see on this edition the rocks are removed from the third base. That happened quite a while ago, and I believe GSL used it in their recent tournament, in their recent finals there. But I think that I was listening to the state of the game, and it sounds like a lot of players are calling that kind of like the final tournament where Tal'Darim Malter is really going to be used.
Final resting place.
Yeah, which I mean,
tournaments go where maps go to die.
Yeah, it was a great map for a while there. It kind of came out when there was no such thing as a nice big macro map. It was one of those first big ones, alongside Terminus, I believe, was also a big one at that point in time.
Terminus never really got the recognition, and it really never got the footing that Tal'Darim did. I mean, Terminus was never really in the map pool. Like, it wasn't in the ladder pool. Where Tal'Darim was able to make it there. So honestly, it was a large map when there wasn't any other large maps at all. Yeah. So and that was kind of in the time when, you know, your 2 base plays were really prevalent. You know, there was, I mean, taking that third base was like, oh, he's taking you. Oh my, what? And you know, like, you'd see that Zealot go over and start taking down the rocks. Like, oh my gosh, the Protoss is going for a macro game. It must be a misclick or something, you know. So unless it's a PvP, and then this is the only map left that you can forgate on.
We don't talk about that, Sleeper. We never talk about that.
God, it's so much fun.
Blizzard. But yeah, I think I love Tal'Darim Malter. I am glad it's finally being put to rest. But I think it did a good job of what it needed to
do. The way you say that, it's like you're taking the dog out back.
Come on, Lassie. Come on, Lassie. Come on, Tal'Darim Malter.
We gotta put you down.
It's been fun.
Don't worry, we got a nice hole dug next to Steps of War and Zelnaga Caverns.
Oh, ow. I would put it next to Zelnaga Caverns and Metalopolis. Not Steps of War. That's just cruel, dude. Steps of War is like that really annoying guy that you start talking to, you know, like you just get introduced to the game, and your friend's like, okay, I'm gonna put you on a nice, easy map. It's called Steps of War. And so, you know, you start this game and it's like, oh, yeah, hey, Steps of War, how's it going? Oh, hi, I like to do musicals, and oh my gosh, you should see this one show. It's like, oh, God, I've made a terrible mistake. Sorry, speaking from a recent experience at school, I'm going to go ahead and...
Recent?
Yeah, well, kind of recent-ish. I guess kind of at the start of the semester.
I was about to say, that sounds like a lot of other people that I know of.
Oh, gosh. But yeah, it's like that introductory map that, you know, like, everybody starts and you think it's a good idea, and then you play a couple games and you realize that, you know, just no. On the other hand, you know, actually talking about the game here, Eubank did go for a very fast natural expansion. I think that was a 1 rack expand. I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
I'll be honest, I wasn't paying attention to the production tab. I was talking to Zuko a little bit in the chat before this game, and he's been talking about how he really likes to do a 3-gate expansion. It's a really nice, safe expansion. It kind of helps thwart any sort of early Rax pressure that a Terran might be coming out with, which, you know, that's definitely in the Terran's arsenal still. So I think it's a really nice, safe way to expand, especially at the lower levels of play, when a lot of the time you do see that really cheesy one-base play coming out of your opponent.
Oh yeah, definitely. I do agree. Low levels of play, it's pretty much cheese city. That being said, of course, one of the little eensy-weensy things you can learn, and as a mid to slightly high-ish level player, this is not for these two players at all. This is just in general. Something you can learn is just the idea of playing to your map, which as the probe gets stuck for Zukaman there, which essentially means. You're sitting on Tal'Darim Altar. This is not, in fact, no matter how much we wish it to be, this is not Steps of War. It is Tal'Darim Altar, the largest map in existence for its time. So that means you're in cross-position Tal'Darim Altar. You're pretty much going to be safe to go for an early expand in PvT. At the very least, a 1-gate, if not a Nexus first. But that being said, the lower levels players really what I would give your advice to is to find that one build and just stick with it no matter what, as opposed to trying to change it up and get all fancy compared to maps. But just a little something to keep in mind. If you cross-position Tal'Darim Altar, you can probably get away with a little bit of an earlier expand. Yeah,
that's actually a really great thing to mention. And like you're saying, I mean, once you start getting to those high levels of play, especially... you know, maybe you want to start thinking about it in Platinum, but once you kind of get to Diamond, that's when you really need to start taking into account those kind of ideas. And like you were saying, of course, you know, these players aren't the highest caliber, but, you know, in the lower levels of play, for all Zukaman could have known, you know, maybe he's faced it 1,000 times before where 2 proxy ratchets are planted right outside, you know, in the third base.
Middle of the map.
Or so, yeah, in the middle of the map or something. So, I agree, you know, when you're in those lower levels, it's great to just pick that one build that you kind of know in that matchup and go with it. Eubank did take, I would like to mention, really fast 4 gases. I mean, like, he had those 4 gases up almost immediately, which I think is kind of why he might be a little bit mineral starved.
Okay, he is actually mining that correctly as well. He's got 3 each. That being said, though, I do have to notice that Eubank's his natural was extremely early, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got that out, was able to get a lot of additional stuff. That being said, though, he's actually not too crazy far ahead in both the harvester count and the general supply of Zukaman. He's only about 20 supply up, and I believe it's 6 or 7 workers ahead of the Protoss player here. So really not taking as much of an early advantage as you could. Ooh, it looks like this is actually the version of Tal'Darim Altar without the rocks.
Yeah, over at the third base. Yep. This is actually the latter edition, which the rocks got taken out.
Did they change that?
Yeah, they got taken out 1 or 2 seasons.
I've had it vetoed for forever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't mind Tal'Darim. I like it in all the matchups except
PvP it.
PvP. I hate it in PvP.
It's vetoed because of PvP for me.
Fair enough. It looks like Eubank actually wants to do a little bit of a push out here. And once again, I can't help but think this might have been a little bit stronger had he only maybe taken 3 gases.
That's a lot of medevacs.
Had a little bit, yeah, exactly. Had a little bit more minerals. And had maybe another barracks or 2 pumping out units. I mean, there's just so many medevacs for the number of units he has on the ground right now. That's just not that much down on the ground. No concussive shells as of yet, but does have stim and, I believe, combat shields. Yeah, he does have combat shields. But Zukaman up on the high ground there does have plenty of sentries. So long as his force shields are in place, I think he'll be fine.
Nice solid supply block for Eubank. Gonna be chilling at 102 out of 102 supply for a little bit here. Actually going for a bit of a doom drop here. Lifting everything up, going straight for that juicy mineral line of the Protoss player. Gonna go ahead and start to unload. No reaction quite yet from Zukaman. There it is. Gonna go ahead and start pulling back, knowing that engaging that is gonna be really difficult due to the minerals there. Gonna go ahead and engage it anyway. Not sure I agree with that decision. The Zealots are all completely caught behind. Only the sentries with their tickle beams trying desperately to hold off the force of the Terran, and somehow, some way, going to go ahead and force Eubank to lift off and fly away, but taking so much more damage than he needed to there. Actually still has a handful of probes just sort of chilling in his main base in the bottom portion there. but he will go ahead and thwart the plans for Eubank to drop into the main for the time being. So it looks like he's going to go ahead and stabilize here if he can just remember those probes. There they go.
There we go. Now going back to that natural expansion to begin mining. I agree that engagement angle, not the best for Zugaman, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure how he pulled that one out with that number of zealots caught behind the rest of his units. But I mean, that's beside the point.
Advantage.
He what?
He did have an upgrade advantage.
Does he have an upgrade? Oh, I guess
he has 1-1 to 0-1.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well that definitely helped a little bit there. But guess what that did? In the meantime, Eubank sets up 3 sentry towers. That's a unit you don't see too often, and a planetary fortress at his 3rd base.
He has a lot of missile turrets too, actually. Just like strewn in random
and
positions.
Dark Templar maybe?
I like it actually for observers. I like one by each base, just in case. I mean, that denies observers. It denies the Dark Templar if there's anything like that coming out for a Protoss player. It's one of those things that it's a very good for when you're in the lower levels. It's a very good just in case structure.
Yeah. Yes. Once again, sensor towers is just something you just never see, and I actually think they're vastly underused. I mean, just put one or two in your bases, and you can have a pretty nice little spread to know when your opponent is getting anywhere near you. Unfortunately, you do get this massive outline on the map, which alerts your opponent of the position of the sensor towers, but I still think that they're a great unit that should be used more often. And speaking of a great unit that should be used more often, we have a fusion core on the way.
Oh, always a good decision. Battlecruisers are ridiculously strong versus Protoss.
And Terran and Zerg.
Just adding 2 or 3 to your army is generally really strong, and most Terrans don't do it because of the fact that they're so slow, and you're generally going with a bio army, and your bio's hitting here, hitting there, jumping all over the place, doing drops and all that jazz. So you don't generally see battlecruisers, but I actually really like it in a mech composition. So I wouldn't mind if our if our Terran players started to switch over to maybe a little bit of a mech style, if he decides to commit to these battlecruisers. That being said, he just sort of lifted off of medevac and flew it away, even though there's a complete straight shot into this 3rd base, and there's actually nothing there to defend this 3rd base.
Yeah, it's a little vulnerable right now. I'd agree with that. We do have a few High Templars somewhat ish close in position to feedback or maybe drop a Storm or 2 on the army as soon as it starts getting unloaded there. And it looks like, yeah, Storm is going to definitely have to be coming down in this battle because there's quite a few stemmed up units there. Medevac not going to be able to heal fast enough to get out of that Storm. Zealots are charged us, by the way, so they are going to be getting up on that army extremely quickly. Or needs to pop a Guardian Shield desperately. Where are those Storms? They are in the back of the army, too far away. And now finally the High Templar getting up. But only after Zugaman loses a few free units.
Dropping the natural of Zugaman. I believe he lost every single probe there. Yep, 26 workers killed by Eubank. Those 4 Marines, the 2 Marauders had their work cut out for them, and they succeeded. Nexus going down at the 3rd base as well. Zugaman just getting completely picked apart. No Storms going down. There's a Storm dropping down, but so late. So many medevacs left on the field. A lot of Marauders still on the ground. By that I mean 3 Marauders left on the ground. But at this point, Zugaman's economy just absolutely in tatters here. Whereas his opponent's sitting on a nice, comfortable 3 bases with a 4th one on the way. I mean, he's in a great position right now. Zugaman with a random warp prism on the map, not really doing anything over on the right side. He definitely could have warped in a couple units and ran it, well, not in the 3rd.
Well, he actually did. He actually did. He threw a couple units into the natural expansion of Eubank. You can actually see a few stemmed up units there. But that just didn't work all that well because, well, there were a few stemmed up units there. And he could only really afford to warp in 2 or 3 zealots because he needed all the firepower he could really get back home. That being said, Zugaman really could have controlled that a lot better. He had a lot of missed opportunities with Storm, allowed that bio army to get right on top of that Nexus and pretty much just melted away. I think he kind of missed on what was going over at his natural expansion, which, like you said, caused him to lose a lot of probes. We come over to this workers killed tab. 40 workers killed by Eubank.
Damn.
Now, there are no Colossus. There's no economy to add Colossus. We do have some Storm and some Archons, but really you kind of need all... You need all 3 of those things. You need the Storm, the Archons, and the Colossus to deal with this late-game army out of Eubank.
That being said, actually, the late-game army out of Eubank isn't necessarily this bio. What I'm really scared for are these 3 battlecruisers making their way across the middle of the map. Because really, if we look at the anti-air for Zugaman, he's got 2 Archon 2 Archons and about 7 Stalkers and a handful of Sentries, and that's it. I don't know how well that's going to do against a couple decent. I think they're upgraded a little bit with 1/1 battle cruisers.
0/1 battle cruisers, and battle
right.
cruisers are like the ultimate tank unit. I mean, I would honestly say that they're a better tank than Ultralists. I kid you not. They start out with 3 armor and 550 health. The best counter to these battle cruisers are going to be these High Templar on the ground with feedback, but that energy is going to be so needed for that storm. I just don't know if he can really actually prioritize this well enough. I mean, there's almost no way to actually do this. Battlecruiser's actually flying over and might be having a chance to target fire the High Templar down. No High Templar's dead yet. No feedbacks going down though. There we go. A couple of feedbacks going down on 1 battlecruiser, but really you only needed 1 feedback per battlecruiser. So there goes some energy right there. All those battle units stemming up now. Battlecruisers in a decent positioning. More battlecruisers coming up to help reinforce. Where is pretty much any army out of Zukaman? Well, there are no zealots here to counter the ground army. Not enough stalkers to counter the air army. Is this going to be it for Zuka right here? Well, he's down 100 supply. I think the safe answer is yes.
Yeah, he's down supply at this point. The only thing he even has kind of going for him here would have been the upgrades, but now not even that. He's really, really far behind here, losing his 3rd base once again. Economy just not there, not going to be able to produce those units that he's going to need to defend against this. Here's the final stand. No storms, no feedbacks, no nothing until the entirety of the army is already dead. So delayed here that it's really not going to matter. I mean, he can feedback every single one of those battlecruisers to his heart content, and really nothing's going to happen because he won't have any units to kill him.
Yeah, and we're just seeing an outright massacre going on there. And that's what happens when you get to this end game. You don't really use your use your spellcasting units to the fullest potential. I mean, well, actually, I'm going to rephrase that. When you don't use your AoE unit to the fullest potential, because the same thing could happen with Colossus. You know, if you have 1 or 2 Colossus sitting too far back and they're not firing, or they're out of positioning and Vikings take them out, or a couple Stim Marauders run up and target fire them down. So when you don't use your AoE to its fullest potential, that's gonna end up happening, and you see it right there, folks.